I'm Ben Bies.
And I'm Carly Bies. We've been married for 12 years and together for 15 and have 2 boys.
This is our story of a controlling church and spiritual abuse and how it shook our relationship and clouded our view of God.
Our desire is that our honest view of pain and trauma in relationships can provide hope and the courage to hold on when life does not turn out as planned,
while also providing a dash of humor and loving banter.
We are still working to find wholeness, and we welcome you on our journey. Welcome back, listeners.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Welcome to this week's episode, which will be, we're not sure what it's going to be titled. Maybe Welcome to New York.
Maybe, or maybe...
Welcome to New York. It's been waiting for you. Welcome to New York. Welcome to New York. That is one of our son's favorite songs, by the way. If you don't know who it is, like, seriously, do you even know music? But really, it's Taylor Swift, you know.
That's the kind of parents we are. That's one of our songs.
Taylor Swift is like the mildest of, well, her old stuff. But.
Yeah, who knows? Or maybe it could be titled The Beginning of the End.
I feel like we've already said that, though.
Have we?
Yeah.
Well.
So this episode is going to be about our New York trip, which was really a life-changing trip for us, and life-changing in the sense that it literally changed the direction of our life.
Yeah, and then maybe some other things in that same season of life.
Yes.
For sure.
But that was really like the start of like us really being able to see God and what he was trying to show us. And we were able just to like kind of take a step back for the first time, really. But something else had come to mind that I was personally experiencing for the past several years that I had kind of forgotten about, but I had just remembered. So I was experiencing like terrible headaches for years. I mean, shocking, right? So they were so bad. They were all day. They were not migraines. I have not experienced migraines because that's like that's different in the terms of like, I feel like people that experience migraines are like put out for half a day, can't be around light, you know, but for me, I had terrible headaches that they were every single day, like guaranteed every single day. They lasted all day. I did have sensitivity to light, but not to the extreme of like migraines. And it really was impeding on my life, but it was going on for so many years that it just kind of became a part of my life. And I had tried several diets. I went gluten-free, and this was like at the height of, or no, not even the height.
No,
this was before gluten-free was
even
a thing. So to find gluten-free products was very like it was very rare. I had allergy tests taken to see. I had MRIs, CAT scans. I had every single test done to figure out what was going on. And I only was able to have that stuff done because I had insurance through the business I was working for, catering.
Well, I don't know if you had insurance or I think maybe your family helped us out with some of those costs.
I had Blue Cross through the catering company.
Oh, yeah, and I just
didn't have Ben didn't have insurance, which is super annoying, but like literally the epitome of our situation. Like couldn't afford for him to be like a dependent on my coverage. But thank God I was covered through Blue Cross through my full-time catering job at the time. I want to say the full-time catering job, just let's I mean, it was still not completely full-time, and it wasn't enough money for a family to survive. I mean, so it's not like it wasn't enough for a family to survive, but like I was absolutely working full time as far as Monday through Friday, because when I got a job as a social worker out of high school, and then they let me go like several months afterwards. It was like a very sketchy situation. They ended up letting me go because they wanted me to have my master's, and I didn't have my master's, and it was kind of like, well, why did you hire me in the first place then? It was very like weird. They ended up being like cited by the health department years like that year anyways. So it was very fortunate that I was not in that situation. But I had a really hard time finding a job with a social work degree, not having a master's. And the catering company that I had worked for through college that you had worked at occasionally through the summers and through Christmas vacation time, said, hey, we'll hire you for what you would make as a social worker, full time. And that was a huge saving grace. So I did work full time. I did have health insurance through that. And that was, thank God. So I was able to get tests done. I even did like some sort of sleep, what's it called? Where they do like a sleep study on you, where you go in for like a couple hours and fall asleep, and you have all these like machines and suctions connected to you and try to figure out what's going on like with your brain, like while you sleep. And I was having trouble sleeping. And I remember like one of the doctors at one point saying, do you think like maybe you're just like stressed about like life? Is there like, what does your husband do? Like, they got like really deep into those types of situations because there was just no explanation for why I was why my health was so bad. And I remember saying like, no, like I'm not stressed. Like he's gone a lot and he's busy and stuff, but like that's not. I remember being so clueless to. That would be the reason why, like, that would be causing me headaches. I remember, like, my family, like, years later being like, hello, Carly, like, are you like, so stupid that you can't even realize that this is the association with this?
Yeah, that maybe the fact that your husband works 20 hours a day and you have no relationship with him, you see him once a week, and you don't have money and you can't pay your bills, and you're living in a place you don't like, and, there's a lot of things maybe going on that aren't great.
Yeah, but I like received a ton of different treatments and went through a lot of extensive testing and procedures to figure out what was going on because I couldn't make sense of it in my own mind because and that just kind of just shows how when you're like really wanting to serve God, how just, I don't know, obscure things can be in that type of situation when there's such a fine line between serving God and like trying to serve man at the same time. But that was several years of struggling through the headaches. And an interesting thing is when we did leave church, like several months later, the headaches were gone.
Yeah, just left.
Imagine that.
Yeah, it was legitimately.
It was
almost
every
3
day.
years of like having a headache every single day.
Yeah.
And us praying fervently that God would change it. And the way I look at it is always, it was like another little piece of God trying to get our attention.
Yeah.
But our attention wasn't completely on
and
what it should have been.
Do you think like during that time that there was ever a thought of like, oh, this is like an attack from the enemy,
I think there was potentially like
I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah, I think both. Okay. Probably the thought went through that either the enemy's attacking us or, you're just too big of a Jezebel, so you have a headache. So that's your punishment for being a Jezebel, is headaches.
I'm a Jezebel because you're a freaking Ahab. So, who's the worst person in the story?
For sure, Jezebel.
For sure, Ahab. But yeah, I remember that this week about the headaches, and I still have like my MRI scans and CAT scans of all of that and doctors were basically just stumped, and I think at one point they did offer some sort of counseling, or something. And I was like, I don't need that. Like,
oh, Jesus.
Yeah, like that's not, and I think I even like came home and told you, like, that's not what this is about. Like, that's not what I need. Like, I'm so much further along than you. But it's just crazy to think how blind we were to that. It's just like another example of like, wow, we were really so bought into this lifestyle that couldn't even see the effects that it was having on us. It was just another layer of an effect that it was having on our life that we weren't able to like really comprehend.
Yep.
Anyways, fast forward to, we kind of ended last week's episode on the opportunity to go to New York to visit Ben's aunt and uncle who lived there.
After Africa fell apart.
Yeah, after Africa fell apart, after our pastor had gambled away all of the money fundraised in Vegas. And
he was at Lake Mead. That's what he told us.
Oh, my bad. He was at the casinos in Lake Mead.
AKA you drive to Vegas from there.
But we were given the opportunity to go to New York, but it was more like a just invitation.
I think what had happened is my aunt and uncle lived there, and they were going to move away, and my brother had visited, and we had reached out to them, and they said, "Well, we're leaving after Christmas, so if you want to come, you got to come now." And so we started thinking about it and planning it, and
they were leaving before Christmas.
Yeah, well, it was before Christmas. So whatever Carly says, she's usually right.
I was just thinking of the timeline.
But I have an old email from Carly, because apparently we email each other back and forth because our phones didn't work at some point, or we hadn't paid the bill and couldn't pay the bill. So we had to email each other, and there was an email from Carly.
Well, I knew Ben was always at a computer, obviously. So
in September of this year.
2009.
Yeah, and it basically, the entire email was like, all our bills are due. We don't have enough money to pay it. We're overdrawn. And we can't go to New York. So this is the worst ever. I'm going to go die.
What did I say, though, specifically? You said, pray against the spirit of me wanting to die or something.
Which was kind of a joke. And kind of a joke,
but also, such a cry for help of please see me in my desperate need for everything.
Yeah, so that was in September, so we had planned on going there, and then it wasn't going to work 'cause obviously we had no money, and then
it was an ideal we would love to go, obviously. And I remember your aunt and uncle being we'd love to have you here, we have a place for you, but we're leaving at the end of November, before Thanksgiving, so you'd have to come before then. And we were kind of oh, I don't know if that can really happen. So we kind of I don't think this can really happen.
And I hadn't left the work or the business for 4 years at this point. Maybe 5.
Yeah.
I had not been on vacation.
Well, and we had been on vacation as family. With my family, we'd go camping every summer.
Right,
and
but I was still with my phone. I was still close enough where I could drive there.
We would be at Refugio in Santa Barbara camping, and Ben would have to go to a Starbucks for a couple hours every single day to get service to do some work, stupid internet website.
Yeah, I remember we went with my family to San Diego for 3 days, and one night in the hotel room, the entire night I was up in the bathroom trying to fix a website.
Yeah, that was a picture we posted of you on the phone.
Yeah, but that night I was up the entire night trying to fix something, a website problem. So anyway, all that to say, we'd never been on a vacation away from California for an extended period of time at this point.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was almost, I know at this time in our business, the head pastor was showing up less to church, was showing up less to the business, would just call and make sure we were doing our work, but becoming a little more distant, but still having the same pressure on us. And having a lot of go-to meetings and a lot of office phone calls, trying to make sure we're all doing the right thing. And I remember specifically a time when he would do this multiple times, but he would 3-way call me and somebody else and basically try to get me to say something bad about the other person that was on the other line, about what they said or what they were, or what they, I don't know. It was manipulation at its finest.
Yeah, that happened a lot towards the end. But a couple of people have asked, who was running church services at this time, since our pastor was kind of in and out and still on sabbatical, but then still in the business, a lot. And we just had associate pastors speaking kind of every single Sunday. And in some ways it was kind of a relief, I remember, because I was still required to go every single Sunday, even though you weren't there necessarily every single week. Like, it would kind of be like, maybe you'd be there, maybe you wouldn't.
Yeah.
It depended on the project you guys were working on, how far along you were, when it was due, all of that sort of thing. But in some ways it was kind of nice not having him there, because then we knew, like, okay, it wasn't going to be like a 4-hour service. And, like, I even feel bad saying that now.
Well, yeah, it would still be long. There just wouldn't be the fear of at any point being called out.
Yeah.
I think it was more that. It would still be a long service, but you'd feel more of a freedom to know that you could really experience God in that time, as opposed to worrying that you might get yelled at.
Well, there was a little bit more of an expectation of the service, which I don't think is wrong to have at church. Like, knowing, like, okay, we're going to have worship for this long. We're going to have somebody preaching for this long and having tithe and offering. And that's kind of the expectation of the service. Like, we could never really have an expectation of the service, because it would always just change. And not that that's wrong either, but it was nice to just kind of be like, okay, this is going to be my experience this morning. And it's going to be maybe 2.5, 3 hours long versus 4.5, 5 hours long. And there's not going to be as much fear involved. And I'm not going to have to put as much effort forth too. I felt like too was, for me at least, like, there was almost like a performance that had to happen from a lot of people in the church when he was there, of like worship performance or like dancing performance or like whatever it was. You had to be like on your top game. So it was kind of like a relief in a sense of, gosh, like, you can just kind of, I don't know, enjoy like Sunday service as it is, but didn't really even know how to enjoy it just for what it was, because it was so extreme of either like so all in and like overly, exaggerated with everything if our pastor was there, or like, ugh, he's not here, thank God, like I can just like chill, whatever. There was no like, I wish for, at least for me, like more of a sincerity of just me and my relationship with God. I don't think I had like my own relationship with God at this point at our church, because it was so involved with him. But anyway, so yeah, at this point there were just associate pastors that were giving the message on the weekend, on Sundays.
And the messages were usually revolved around what the business was doing or the church was doing in supporting our pastor. So it was associate pastors, but our pastor would have input on what they were preaching.
That's true.
And to make sure that it was falling in line with his vision and the vision of the house. So
control at its finest.
Yeah, so it was, you feel like, oh, this person's speaking, the word, but it's backing up what you're doing anyway, because that's what the pastor wanted. So yeah, it was other people, but it was all controlled by him. I mean, he would listen to every sermon and make sure that nothing was out of line with what he thought needed to happen at the church.
And if it was, then you would know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, we were basically we weren't able to go to New York with our own finances, and an associate pastor and his wife, who were some of our closest, like she was like my major confidant during all of this, and he was he wasn't an armor bearer, but he was like his right-hand man.
Yeah.
And he was the one who, after you won the game show, earnings came down from upstairs to tell you, like, our pastor wants to know if you actually really prayed about how much you're going to give him. Like, just for context, this is the same person. So they were basically like, you guys have this opportunity to go to New York, like, we're going to pay for you to go. And they must have just had like just enough on their credit cards to be able to pay for us to go, because like nobody had money. It wasn't like people were holding out and, like it's just for the perfect opportunity, but they must have had enough on their credit card to be able to buy us tickets to go. And I remember still feeling nervous about like, okay, we have no money once we get there. Like, I don't want this to be an awkward situation with Ben's family of like, I don't know. And I didn't really know them too much, and I hadn't spent a ton of time around them. And I mean, you hadn't even really post-college anyway, like either,
after college,
because
I didn't spend time with anybody.
Right, right. He's so much of a stranger as to your uncle as you are to me, so, at this point. But I remember feeling like, like so awesome we have our tickets paid for, but I don't know what it's going to be like once we get there, and like food and stuff. We have a place to stay, and you don't remember this, but I know that your aunt had reached out and said, we can't wait to have you guys. Just so you know, we're going to be taking care of like attractions and things for you guys to do and food while you're here. And it was like it was like beyond an answer to prayer, really, because we wouldn't have been able to, and maybe it was like irresponsible for us to even like to make this trip, not having a penny to our name. But at the same time, I feel like God really used it to speak to us while we were there. But it was like so exciting to be able to go there. Your aunt and uncle had a place in the financial district that was like a loft style place that they were going to be moving out of because they were going to be moving to the Poconos because your uncle's retiring, right? And he's been super successful and just so generous. Everything I know of him, they've always been super generous and so giving, and so to be able to have us at their house, their loft apartments in the financial district in Manhattan was just like, we were just so excited. It was like the most amazing thing. We didn't really have any idea what to expect. We had never been to New York. I had been to New York like in junior high on a trip, and I loved it, and I was obviously thrilled to like go again. But so we had booked our flights for the first week in November. We were going the first week in November.
Got in a red eye.
The cheapest flights, obviously.
And then we had to get a taxi to their house.
Yeah.
And apparently, this was before Uber and Lyft were a big deal.
Yeah.
So
they didn't even exist.
No.
Yeah.
And so we were getting our bags, and some guy came up to us and was like, hey, you guys need a taxi? We're like, yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, we do.
This is exactly what we need.
We absolutely do. Thank you. Thank you, guy.
So we followed the guy into his minivan, and he brought us there, and then we found out later that was the wrong thing to do. That's actually not what you do.
It was like $20 for him to take us from like LaGuardia. I think we flew into LaGuardia.
I can't remember.
And took us to the financial district, like to your uncle's place, and it was like we arrived at like 6:30 a.m.
Yeah, we hadn't slept all night.
Haven't slept all night, but we were like, that's nothing new. Also, who cares? We're away. Cares? And I remember like when we told your uncle, he was like, I'm sorry, you did what? We were like, oh, were you not supposed to do that? Apparently, you're not supposed. If people approach you for like a ride, you're not supposed to.
Well,
go
at that
with those
point,
people.
when there wasn't Uber and Lyft, you had to go to actual like taxi
place. He was in the terminal
place.
with us.
Yeah,
he was in the terminal asking people if they needed rides.
Like, we went to a straight minivan. It wasn't like a taxi.
I commend the guy for like hustling, But he had. I think what made me feel safe was that he had like a GPS navigation, which was like, okay, at least he's done this more than once. I mean, whether or not he's like kept his clients as prisoners.
Yeah.
But I remember like looking at you being like, did you just like seriously, is this the end of our life?
Yeah,
like we have a chance to get away and like literally we're going to die.
And I thought for sure in my mind I could see Carly's face and I could read it, even though I wasn't around her very much at this point in my life. I looked at her and I thought, if this goes bad, this is completely on me. Because I was the guy who was like, oh yeah, cool, we need a ride. And I think even when he asked if we wanted a ride, Carly was a little bit like...
I was totally apprehensive, obviously.
I don't know, and I was like, personality. Oh, cool. Like, oh man, this is perfect. This is exactly what we need.
Really? Like, we're in this terrible mess of...
Can we pay you with credit card or overdrawn bank fees?
Either way, we made it safe, which was God's grace. And, Yeah, your aunt and uncle were just so accommodating. And we we did everything there was to do as like a tourist of New York City for the first time. We went to Statue of Liberty that first day.
Yeah, we got there at 6:30, we went in there, didn't sleep, put our bags down, and walked to the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah, and she was like your aunt was just so amazing in the sense of like, hey, like I'm gonna take you to do all these things, and they were so generous and so. I mean, it was just such an amazing experience for us, having been where we were at, to go somewhere that was like obviously clear across the country, where, I mean, yeah, you were still a phone call away, but you weren't really as accessible because our pastor was kind of not backing off, but he was just, I don't know.
Licking his wounds.
Yeah, he was becoming more and more of a victim, and we just were not having it. AKA, I was not having it.
But at this time, the week we were there, I was getting calls the entire time that our rent was due and we couldn't pay it.
It was the first week of the month, yeah.
And by that time, our rent was almost a week late at the business. Mm-hmm. And it was just one of those times where I think I put up my hands and just said, whatever. I can't, I literally can't, I can't pay, we can't pay our rent. And I was getting calls from creditors. I mean, like my phone was ringing off the hook for people that I owed money to or the business owed money to the whole time we were there. And some reason I just, whatever.
Well, and remember too, my grandma took a turn for the worse at that point. So my grandma had been diagnosed with lymphoma, my mom's mom, and it was kind of a like out of nowhere thing. And I remember talking to my mom on the phone and asking how she was doing, and like we both kind of started crying, and like my mom she didn't want to tell me because she was so excited that we were away, and I think they were so excited for us to have this opportunity that she didn't want to like burden me with the fact that like my grandma was not doing well. And I remember crying in the taxi on the way to dinner one night. It was just a very, like, as amazing as the trip was, it was equally very heavy with everything that was still going on in our lives. And with my grandma being sick, you know, that was a really hard thing on my family. And not being able to be there was hard. Not that I would have been there. She lived in Minnesota at the time, and but it just kind of felt like things were crumbling around us. And we were in this other place that was so amazing, but at the same time was like things were just crumbling, you know, like things back home were crumbling, things with my family were crumbling with just, you know, my grandma's health and stuff. And that was really hard to deal with. But, you know, I think like the question has come up a lot of like, did anybody try to help you like process this sort of thing, of like question like what you were doing or anything like it? And we've kind of addressed that in the past with parents, you know, wondering like, we know where were our parents' role in all of this and stuff. But no one could really tell us anything. Like we were very hard to convince otherwise of what we believed in. But there was something about New York and being where we were at kind of definitely, I mean, at our wits' end was, I mean, an understatement, at our wits' end. And being able to spend time with like your aunt and uncle who like are so caring, but also have like been so successful in their life, and to be able to, I mean, so we went out to dinner one night. Remember, we had walked to dinner, and your cousin and his wife lived there. And, I mean, you grew up obviously spending time with your cousin, and I don't even, I mean, I think maybe I had met them maybe one time before, but just such an enjoyable couple to be around. And, we had so much fun with them, and really had a lot in common, as weird as we were at that point. Like, I think moving forward, we had more in common. But I remember just like loving your cousin's wife, but we went out to dinner that night. And you remember that dinner? Just like the questions your uncle asked us?
we went near their house just walked to, and it was a really great dinner, and that was awesome too. Like, we ate at the greatest places, and we weren't used to eating really good food. And the questions he asked me were really simple, and they weren't overly crazy, but it was things like, what's your plan for your family, and are you really providing for your family the way that you want to, beyond finances and including finances? Are you really doing what you feel like you need to do for your family? What's your future plan? And things that seem so simple, but as he was asking me, it was by far 100% the first time that someone asked me those questions, and I allowed those questions to process inside me and say, what is my plan? And I know it's to have faith and see this work out, but really, how am I providing for my family?
Yeah.
And how am I doing that in a way that's honoring God? And
it was almost like the first time God was like lifting the veil a little bit for us to really see him. And it was like he was offering us an opportunity to get out. And this was kind of, I truly feel like one of the very first steps of us, not maybe the first step, but was definitely a step, being there in New York with your aunt and uncle, being asked these questions, that really was a huge catalyst of us changing our lives, really. That it allowed, I think it was, we were finally able to really lift the veil and allow God to really show us what was right, what was of him, what was not of him, and what we were to do from there.
Yeah, and it was simple questions, but it was just the right timing and being away.
And it wasn't like anybody had asked those. It's not like no one had asked those questions before. They had, but it was the timing. And I think that is something that I still wrestle with in terms of like, well, why do you think God didn't reveal, more truth earlier? Or like, why do you think that you were ready at that point in time to like really see the truth versus a different time? Like, that's hard for me to really reconcile, and to be like, I think the best answer that I have at this point is that I just may never know on the side of eternity at this point.
Yeah, and it's, I agree. And I think part of it was, again, we were at our wits' end.
Yeah.
We'd come to the end. There was so much going on with the business and being called every day about late finances, and then having our pastor in Las Vegas gambling when we couldn't pay for anything.
We would have never been able to go on a New York trip had it been 6 months earlier or even any earlier before that. So
yeah, but he had kind of started to back away a little bit, and again, we'd said the car rides there with my best friend. We started to see the just manipulation that was involved, and how incredibly horrible he was treating certain people, and began to see that maybe this wasn't like God revealing this stuff to him. Maybe it was him and his ability to gossip with people, learning things behind people's backs, and all these things were adding up. And I think added to that point, we're in New York, away from everyone, and we're with people that are successful. So it's not like that are successful and love their family and take care of their family. Yeah, so it's like, oh wait, this is a like reality apart. This is a reality apart from what's going on in my life right now. That seems to be a good reality.
Right.
So maybe I'll listen to these questions.
And I think it was I think it was just the timing of it. Like, your Uncle Gary was just, I mean, I truly feel to this day that like he was the start of like what saved our life. Like, you were able to hear things from him that you weren't able to hear years prior, because of the timing, because of him, because of where we were, because of the distance of location, of all of those things. But I remember feeling like, wow, I remember feeling like you were maybe, I guess, just getting it a little bit, because I think maybe I always had hoped that you would have that perspective of like taking care of your family and all of those things that he asked of you. But I think to like really see you take that in, like you weren't one to take people's advice because we always knew better, you know. We like, you know, there was nobody that knew better than us, like so you weren't going to be taking people's advice no matter how where they were in their life or whatever, you know, outside of our church, like whether it be like my family or whatever it was. But at this point, like at this time, it was almost like you were ready to receive that. And I could see that. And it was so exciting in a way because it felt like, oh my gosh, like maybe things can change. But it also felt like, oh my gosh, but we're so deep into this. Like if things change, like we're still so like, wow, there's just a lot.
Yeah. And I think all that is true. And I think to encourage anyone who's maybe has family going through things, whether it's at church like this or anything else, what I believe helped me listen was that, you know, a lot of times in my life when things weren't going great and some things were going weird with my family or we didn't have money, like my uncle had helped us out with things. So there was a track.
When you were little?
Yeah, there was a track record in my life of, I remember getting basketball shoes from him once, and one time when I went to college, I was going back to college, I couldn't pay for books, and somehow it just
that's right.
worked out. So I think just encourage everybody out there, like just keep being a part of people's life and giving. And it shows a track record. For me, it showed a track record of this person, like no matter what anybody else says, this person really cared about me in my life. So how can I not listen a little bit at least?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
So I think encouraging anyone else out there, like just keep loving people and keep serving them and sacrificing for them. And eventually maybe God will give you a chance to speak into their life and they'll be able to listen to it because of what you've done for them and what you've consistently showed a care for them. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but I'll never forget. It was I think it was a seafood place.
It was.
That we went. It was kind of like an undergroundish area, which I guess so many places in New York were. I don't remember that place specifically, like where it was in proximity, but I'll never forget because your cousin, I feel like your cousin and his wife, like Jason and Kim, they ended up leaving, didn't they? Like have to get back home or something. And it was just the four of us. But I remember the conversation with the four of us in that restaurant, and it really, I feel like it just broke through some barriers with us for the first time in so many years of like we were able to hear somebody from the outside where we were never able to hear from the outside before. And really be able to hear what they were saying to us and advice that they were giving and just questions that they were asking us like out of love because they genuinely cared for us. Yeah. Yeah.
So it was great.
It was great.
It was amazing. We did everything you could hope to do. Well, someone else was paying for it, which is so thankful for. And this was the fattest I've ever been. And there's a couple pictures. Your
stupid haircut, kind of.
Yeah, there's a couple pictures where we look back, we're like, okay, this is not to say body image is a big deal. And if you're a little bit bigger, it's no big deal. Just for me, I wasn't used to it. And we look at pictures now, we're like, that's just what's your problem? And then we went on a run with my cousin and his wife, and his wife was 5 months pregnant.
She was, 4 or 5 months pregnant.
4 or 5 months pregnant.
In Central Park. I mean, talk about a dream.
Like the most amazing run. And this is when Carly was like running queen.
No, I wasn't. I think at that point I was starting to consider doing a half marathon. And that was in November. And I did a half marathon that following February. Yeah. So, yeah.
So Carly was running. I obviously was just sitting in the office getting fatter and eating manwich sauce. And nothing else the entire day, and smoking bad cigarettes. So
why were you getting fatter then if that was the case?
I don't know.
Atrophy.
But we went for a run in Central Park, and it was 4 of us, and we started running, and I couldn't run. I couldn't go for a jog. My body couldn't do it.
Yeah, so you and Kim did like the 4 mile loop.
So,
but still, even 4 miles at that.
No, it wasn't a 4 mile.
Yes,
was like,
it was.
No, Carly, it was
because me
not.
and Jason did 6 miles.
Okay, I'm telling you, it wasn't 4 miles. It was like 2.
No,
Yes.
it was more than that.
No, I promise you it wasn't because it was so bad. It was so embarrassing. So Carly goes on this long, like 6 mile run, and I go with
Ours
the pregnant.
Wasn't that mile. Much longer than yours.
I go with the pregnant lady, and multiple times she turned to me and said, "Do you want to just walk for a little while?" The pregnant lady turned to me, and and I said, "Yeah, let's walk for a little while." So I had to walk some of the run with the person who was pregnant, who could have run the whole time, and running like 2 or 3 miles less than the other people, and probably finishing at the same time. So it was just like so horrible.
But can we talk about why this trip was even so much more exciting for me and being infatuated with New York? AKA one of my obsessions being Felicity. Okay, so like I wanted just to live the life of Felicity when we were in New York. We went to Dina DeLuca. We
took
went
a
to
picture
NYC.
in front of it. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it just was. I think that's why it felt so. Because like Felicity was so like monumental for me and meant so much to me, like in my high school years and college years, like watching with all my college roommates, and it just had a huge influence on my life, and so being able to go to New York and like experience that too, like made it that much more exciting, I guess, you know. And so, I mean, yeah, we were able to do everything. We did like Rockefeller. We went to see a Broadway play. We saw Mary Poppins, which was so amazing. So good. We went to so many incredible eating, like, I mean, so many incredible places to eat. And this was like before I felt like we were even really...
Yeah, knew what food was, really.
Yeah. I mean, like, we did, but we just didn't we couldn't afford to, like, do any of that, so...
Or time to go out with each other.
That was kind of before we were, like, became real, like, foodie people, I guess. But just so many fun experiences that were so outside of what we were used to in terms of, like, spending time with your cousins and...
Ignoring calls from bill collectors.
Yeah,
that was a normal thing, but I would just ignore more.
Like an evening out. Like we just we hadn't done that in so long, and we had never spent 6 days together. I remember that being like that was weird in a way because we had never spent
since our honeymoon.
We had never spent that much time together in a row to where we were in the same location. And they were I remember definitely having conflicts while we were there. Probably me feeling numb towards our relationship and all of that again. And I remember like the sadness of my grandma's health, like contributing but it was an incredible trip that was really a life-changing trip, that just, it truly was life-changing, and it will forever hold such a special place in our heart, like New York in general, and which is why we went back for our 10-year anniversary. Mm-hmm. Because it just symbolizes so much to us. It really symbolizes like, it changed our life in a lot of ways. And I know that it was God that did that, but I feel like your aunt and uncle were so instrumental in really helping us take that next step. So we have an incredible time there. We're there. Oh, and the Yankees had won the World Series when we were there. Oh, yeah. And Jay-Z had performed on the
Steps of the Capitol, New York song.
We were even into that at that point, which is...
Well, sort of. We weren't allowed to listen to that secular music, I guess. That was more... I definitely knew the songs and Jay-Z. I knew Jay-Z more from like college and high school, but yeah, when we were at this point, we were like overly religious, so we didn't listen to that stuff.
But even just like the parade, the Yankee parade, and like the ticket tape everywhere, like
crazy.
Oh my gosh, it was just so fun, and just like we just got to do so many things. Your aunt and uncle were just so beyond generous in what we were able to do and what they provided for us. It was just, I feel like I can never like thank them enough for what that meant to us in our life at that time.
Yeah, right place, right time, and generous people that are loving. And so hang in there, everybody who you've got family. Just hang in there.
Yeah.
You could be the one to break through if you just keep caring and loving and being giving.
I think that's a testament to like if you know people that are in a hard situation that you just don't know how to help them, and you just continue to pray for them or continue to be there for them and continue to support them, continue to call them, whatever it is, like there may be a time where your words are heard like more than they have been in the past, and that's what it was for us. You know, so had people given up on us completely, like I don't know where we'd be today.
Yeah.
You know, had people like really treated us the way that we should have been treated, like we were complete jerks to them and, you know, just were out of touch and all of those things, we wouldn't have deserved any of those things, you know. But yeah, I think just don't give up on the people that are in your life that you're hoping for and praying for and connecting with. I think just stay connected with them in some sort of way. You just never know what God will open up.
Yeah.
And that's definitely how it was for us.
Yeah. And then we came back to bills and debt and so many questions in our mind, but yet still the pressure of feeling like I'm all in.
Yeah.
You know, like I can't get back in the boat. I jumped in the water.
Yeah.
You know, I jumped off the cliff. I hope these wings work, not let's grab a parachute. You know, it's like
it was such turmoil.
It just, you know, in just such a weird spot. And at this point is when that was November, and then it started rolling into Christmas time when Carly's grandma was getting sicker, and then trying to figure out what's going on in our life with debt and no money and
this business that was still going on.
Business that was, we're getting clients but not having money to pay bills, and having my name on leases and our credit wrapped up in a business that we weren't able to control, and
our own personal finances that we couldn't be on top of.
And our own personal marriage that was cold as ice.
Ice storm.
Ice storm.
But I think like what was such in addition to like going to New York and experiencing that, like the next like huge catalyst of change that was coming was a very involved, like influential couple in the church who had been there for like 20 years, right? Who had been there, like all of their kids were born there, and they had been involved for, I think
from the beginning,
for 20 years, close to 20 years.
He was an associate pastor also,
They had decided to leave.
Yeah.
And people had like come and gone here and there, but never anybody who was like involved or been there for an amount of time. This was like literally groundbreaking.
Yeah, and they were
they were leaving.
They were one of the few people that had stable jobs that were like the biggest givers at church. Yes. So it wasn't just like
they weren't just like
people who were involved.
No, they were deep into the church.
They were probably, you know, single-handedly paying the pastor's salary.
Yeah.
It was.
And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, like I cannot believe they're leaving, but at the same time it felt like, because I think at this point we were just, I think just separately, because we never obviously prayed together. Separately, I think I was praying like, God, like, please just do something. I don't know what it is to even pray for at this point. Like, we're back from New York. It was an incredible experience. It was, you know, like, it maybe gave Ben a little bit of just a little bit of something to maybe take a stand for something in this life, but I don't know if it was enough. Like, I was just praying for something for you to be able to stand for yourself and like for us, you know, because you weren't capable of doing that. And, you know, in times that you were, like, you know, our pastor just totally shamed you for it. So we're just praying like for something, like, God, please just do something. Like, and I had never really prayed that before. I think before it was always like, God, change me, like change my hate for, change my heart for like the hate for this life or whatever it was, or like help me to love my husband, or, but this was like the first time I was really praying like, God, please do something. Like, we need something. And this pastor and his wife leaving and his family leaving, this was before Christmas time, after we were back from New York, but before Christmas. I remember thinking, oh my gosh, like God is doing something, because no one had ever left that was this influential in the church before.
Yep.
Like this truly was ground shattering. Like it just was, like, I remember even just thinking back, like, holy cow, this was making a statement. And the reasons for leaving were all of the reasons for everybody.
I don't know if we ever knew the reasons, because it was, no one would ever really talk about the reasons.
Right, but I think I think it's pretty obvious what the reasons were, but I think it was really the start of the unraveling, like truly the start of the unraveling of like, oh my gosh, people have the ability to leave, and B, like, oh my gosh, like they're doing it, like what's going to happen to them? Like, I think we were all kind of like so happy for them, but also like, oh my gosh, like what is this going to mean, Whereas like had it been a year previous, we'd have been like, oh my gosh, they just don't get it, or they aren't going to like experience God fully. But at this point we were like, oh my gosh, I'm so jealous that they are that they are making that decision, But yeah, that was a huge factor going into Christmas for really all of us that I think were attending the church. I mean, all of us that were like really, really close and really involved, because like our pastor was it seemed like he was gaining, like he had little, I mean, week after week, it was like he had little, just authority. Every time it was a little less. And I remember him being at church one Sunday, and he was, I don't know if you remember this, but he was like in the just utmost of his, like, I'm a victim mentality at that point. Like, oh, this family's leaving and this is just so hard on me. And, he was just always a victim in everything he did. But I remember this one particular Sunday, it was sometime between November and Christmas, Thanksgiving and Christmas, where, we were all like forced to greet everybody after church. Remember, like the greeting, we were like, we had to go up to everybody that was new, and it was like kind of a mandate on us that were there for a while, and which I don't feel like there's anything wrong with. No, like,
that's good.
Yeah, absolutely, like meeting new people and making them feel welcome and all that stuff. But I remember like he would kind of make his rounds after service, and be like, oh, pastor, like, or apostle, whatever it was at that point. How are you doing? And he'd always be like, oh, okay, like, oh, it's just been like really hard, whatever. And I remember saying to him, because he was like, oh, it's just been like really hard. And I remember being like, really? Like, really? It's been hard for you? Really? And he was kind of caught off guard. I remember you like even talking to me about it later, like, whoa, Carly. Carly's lost it. Carly's not coming back. But I remember for the first time really being like I'm not scared of you. Yeah. Like, you are an idiot, and you are not going to make me feel inferior. And like, you're not going to make me feel bad about anything. So like, you like playing the victim in this like conversation right now. I remember being like, oh really? Like, you've had a hard time? Like, give me a freaking break. Like, literally, give me a freaking break. Like, you have a hard time, give me a break. And that was the first time I had been so bold because I felt like I really had nothing to lose at that point.
Yeah.
I really had nothing to lose. Like, what, he was going to, like, talk to you and say, like, oh, Carly's Jezebel? Okay, well, he had already done that. Like, that wasn't, like, a new concept. And, like, at that point, what would you have even said to me? Like, you would have been more like, yeah, I kind of agree with Carly at that point, where it maybe 6 months prior you wouldn't have been, you know, but there was just a shift in, like, what we were able to identify as not okay, really is what I think what's going on. But yeah, that couple had decided to leave, and it kind of pushed us into, you know, Christmas time. We ended up going to Minnesota to visit my grandma and my aunt and her family with my whole family for Christmas, and we'll talk about that next episode. But that was, again, a huge part of our just kind of next life, and allowing us to separate ourselves from what our life looked like to be able to gain some perspective. I think that's really what it was.
Yeah.
Once we were able to be in a situation where we could, like, be outside of our normal day-to-day and gain some perspective, then it was like God, like, truly met us. But we never had that opportunity to do that before New York and then before Minnesota. You know, it was like something about being clear across the country that really, like, separated us.
I can't drive to the movie theater to fight someone who you pissed off, so.
But it's funny because we've been across the country, but I guess you were always with him when you were across the country.
Yeah, always.
Like in Alabama or Tennessee, whatever it was you were with him. So it was different than we were with family other times. But anyway, New York has been just such a significant, special place to us. And really just such a heartwarming place. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it other than it truly, we feel like it has changed our lives, and that trip to see Ben's family was, it really was life-changing. I think that we were in a place for God to really show us what was true and what wasn't, and Ben was able to, like, really hear beyond what he was normally hearing, don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just,
for sure.
Yeah. Just, gosh, I love New York. I could never live there. Don't get me wrong. I could never live there.
You could for like a month.
But, oh my gosh, it just is, like, when I see movies or anything about it, it just is, like, so nostalgic to me because it truly represents, like, life-saving for us. It really was a lifesaver for us. And so it's so much more than just a vacation. It truly saved our lives. And our marriage, obviously. So, anyways, thank you, New York. Thank you, Ben's aunt and uncle. Anyways, we'll see you all next time on Bizography. Thanks for listening to us tell our story.
Yep.
Well, it only seemed appropriate for this week's Final Four for it to be our top 4 memories from New York City.
Yeah. That's right. Which has been hard because I think we've mentioned quite a few things, so some of these might overlap with things we've mentioned, but yeah, some of the stuff. Carly, do you want to start?
Some of the stuff. Yes, as we mentioned in the episode, one of my favorite memories about our first trip. So we went to New York 2 times. One was 2 years ago. Our second trip was 2 years ago. It was for our 10-year anniversary, which was so awesome to go without our children. We only had one child at that time. and just celebrate each other. But my first memory is what we had mentioned in this episode was running in Central Park. That was just such a...
For you, it was a good memory.
Yeah. This is why it's mine and not Ben's. First of all, I can't remember the last time I ran that far. Oh, man. I'm just kidding. I think it was after that run, I was deciding to, like, do a half marathon. But, yeah, it was just, like, beautiful, and it was wonderful weather. It was fall.
Perfect fall day, yeah.
And, just like everything you see in the movies is what it felt. So, that's one of my top ones.
All right. My first top one is might seem strange, but the first time we went there, we were walking somewhere like you do there, and we got cannolis on the street.
Yeah, with your aunt and uncle.
And I never had a cannoli before, and I'm a big sugar fan, so
which is just crazy. You've never had a cannoli before.
I feel like cannoli's not sweet enough for me, but we got it from like a fresh place on the street that was like authentic. It was in Little Italy.
We were in Little Italy.
It was authentic, and it was so good. I don't know if I ever will. I think the second time we went, we tried to find a cannoli that good, and maybe it was just because the memory was so good. I just thought nothing will ever compare to that cannoli I ate.
Well, like everything about that trip was so probably extra because you were eating manwich, and so like a fresh cannoli was like a true delicacy.
Yeah. So strange.
That was a great memory, though. My next one is our second time going. We stayed in Lower East Side, which, let me tell you what.
This is for young people.
These mid-30-year-olds, I mean, those folks can hang in Lower East Side. But we got
too old for that.
We got a really cool Airbnb in Lower East Side, and we debated where we should stay because, you just want to be close to things, but then you also want to have a fun experience. So we decided for Lower East Side, which I think was such a fun choice. I don't know if we would choose it again just because we would maybe want like a variety of a different type of feel, but
not a place that's up until 3 or 4 a.m. all the time.
I mean, so remember we
young,
got
cool
in at like
10:30
p.m. We got in at 10:30 p.m. and our first trip, I don't even think we went down to Lower East Side when we were there with your aunt and uncle and your cousins. But I don't remember going down that far. But we got in our second trip. We were there over the summer and 2 years ago, and it was like 10:30 at night by the time we got in. We were starving because it was like past dinner time, our time in California. And I mean, you're just not even really sure what to expect, but like things were just opening up like for the night at like 11 p.m. It was like, you know how restaurants that serve lunch or they're closed until like 5 p.m. for the dinner hour. This was like that, but they were closed all day until 11 p.m. at night, and then opened up until like 3 a.m. Things are literally open until like 3 a.m. everywhere down there.
It was crazy.
But it was a fun memory because when we first got there, we kind of were like had no idea where to go. And it, because we weren't expecting like the wildness of that area, it made it just a fun evening because we were hungry, so we got something to eat. But then we sat and had a beer, and remember it was so hot and so humid.
Oh, yeah.
And because we went in July, and I remember having like just the best glass of like iced cold rosé. It was so good. But just such a fun memory. We remember just sitting there in that place, that kind of like beach theme bar, and just like, wow, we're actually here. Like, can't believe we're doing this. Yeah. But that was a fun memory.
Yeah. My second one is one we already mentioned, but I have to mention again, was the Yankees World Series parade. It was just like the coolest thing to see everything, the ticker tape literally falling from the sky, and the streets shut down and completely packed, and Jay-Z singing New York State of Mind on the Capitol steps. It was just epic. It was so epic. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, maybe it was like a little bit of a preview of the celebration we would have to go when we left the church. But I've never seen anything like it in that kind of city where there's so many people and just things being shut down. And
well, and people that like the Yankees, like they love the Yankees.
Yeah.
So those are some true fans.
Yeah, it was almost like when the Broncos won the Super Bowl when I was in high school and we rioted in downtown Denver. It was very similar to that. But it was it was so fun to see. Even I think we had heard Jay-Z. We weren't down there for it. We'd heard him from where we were standing, and then we were going somewhere else, and we had to like push through these huge crowds, just packed through the streets. To the yeah, it was awesome. It was cool. Just it was a great
fun memory,
like once in a lifetime thing to see a World Series parade in New York while you're staying there. It was just crazy. Yeah,
that was fun. My third one was basically just like living like Felicity for a week. We all know I love Felicity. And that was fun to like put those pieces together. And fun for all of my other Felicity friends who have also loved the show to like send them pictures of just different. I mean, they didn't even shoot most of the show there when it was on. I think they shot it like at SC, believe it or not. But I don't like to tell myself that because it takes away from like the nostalgia of New York University. But just that for how much I loved that show in high school and college and still current to this day, that was always so fun too. And I feel like so many awesome, amazing movies are set in New York. Yeah. So many like great comedies, and so it's like so nostalgic for me to even like whenever we watch a movie, ever since that trip, whenever we would watch a movie and it was based in New York, we'd always like just kind of look at each other and be like, "Oh."
Or like Seinfeld. That great comedy.
That's right. I forgot. We've never watched a show. But yeah, so not just Felicity in general, but I think like all movies that we've loved that are set in New York, it just, I don't know why it feels like it means so much more. Maybe because New York means so much to us. But yeah, living like Felicity was great. Great memory.
My next one's kind of general, but just the food, and we've talked about it before, so I don't need to go into it a lot, but Jacob's Pickles, best place in the world.
Yeah.
And then there was a place we went that I'll just, I remember clearly after we went to church the first time we were there, we went to this little brunch place, and it was like, I think of it as the Hobbit hole. It was like, we walked down into this small door and went there, and we were eating brunch with people literally elbow to elbow with us all around, and it seemed like we're in New York,
like the New York thing to
like
do,
we're in New York. And even like the bathroom was almost like a miniature door to get in the bathroom. It was just, but I think all of those things combined, that being our first trip, not eating great for a long time, and then eating incredible food, and then our second trip really being able to seek out those places and find some good places to eat. I think the food, I guess that works with cannoli too. I'm sorry, that's just how
the food.
It goes. There's so many good memories.
Say other than the food.
There's
was
just so
amazing.
many good memories.
Yes,
especially our second time when we really researched where to go and where to eat, and thank you Yelp.
Thank you Yelp, and also lots of friends that had that go on a regular basis that could give us a lot of input and stuff. But remember that place? It was called Carol's Place, where we got that bruschetta spread. With like the ricotta and strawberries, and I got like some amazing lamb burger, and that place was really good. And I forget if we've mentioned the Rustin Daughters bagel that I wanted to go to every single morning.
Yeah, we did.
Once we because that was close by, sort of close by us.
Yeah, it was
Lower
walking
East Side.
distance.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Everything bagel, toasted with cream cheese and onions and smoked salmon. But I think I got goat cream cheese on it. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Like my mouth is watering just thinking about it.
It reminds me a lot of the New Girl episode when Jess tries to go into that
It's exactly
deli.
that was exactly like the same type of place.
Course I was sent there to go get it by myself, and
did I send you one?
Yeah, oh yeah, I was bullied big time.
Oh, in the shop you were?
Yeah, big time, just like Jess was.
By all the Jewish.
Until I was just like, listen, give me what I want.
Oh, that was when she was in Chicago, right?
Oh, Chicago, I'm sorry. But it just reminded me of that. No, totally. No, it was New York when they went to see Schmidt.
Yeah, okay, you're right. Yeah.
But it reminded me totally of that. I'm like in there, I'm like, just getting pushed around. Yeah, but like, if you're not there for your number right away, it's just...
Oh, man. Yeah, we had that a couple times.
Yeah.
That was so
and then they have a hard time making a decision in those places anyway.
Oh, my gosh.
So...
Oh, my gosh. Oh, that'll be another...
Just too many decisions. Just too many decisions.
Ben's decision-making when it comes to...
food, basically.
Food at a restaurant, in a drive-thru.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do we call it? It's just a... Yeah.
Well, we call it a John Chevroletti.
We'll see it when we get there type of situation.
Oh, totally. Yes.
Like, I guess we'll see. What are you going to order? I guess we'll see.
Game
what
time
happens.
decision.
Game time decision. Yeah.
Game time decision.
It's game time decision. What happens when... I don't know. I might order a pork burger. Never even heard of it, but I...
Oh, my gosh.
And then the waiter will leave and I'll say, I can't believe I just ordered that.
Get so mad. Yeah, it was like me with the barbacoa quesadilla from Chipotle in last week's episode. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, my final one was the 9/11 Memorial Museum that we went to. That was something I really wanted to do, and you were just kind of impartial.
Yeah.
You weren't as like gung ho about it as I was.
I love America. Trust me. I do.
But I'm sure like this was one of the other things that I had like newspaper clippings on for years, much like Princess Di and Titanic, which we didn't talk about Titanic when we talked about obsessions, but that can be a different episode.
Who has a Leo poster on the...
One. I had like 30. But the 9/11 Memorial Museum was so... I mean, there's not even like words to describe how emotional and incredible and sad and beautiful and like patriotic, like all at the same time. And it was so, I think we have a different perspective not having lived there through that tragedy. But we also have a perspective of being very much... Like I remember watching that second plane going through the towers. You were already in college. It was my second day of my senior year in high school.
Yeah,
and classes were canceled. I remember you saying that.
My teacher made me go to class on that day. It was unreal.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, walked into the CAF and there was a note on the door that said America's been attacked. I went to my first class. She's like, we have to have class anyway, and I just
nobody probably understood like the magnitude of what was going on because this was like obviously the first act of terrorism we've had experienced it like to this capacity. But I think just because like we obviously didn't live it being in New York, but we've lived it. It's been a part of our generation. It's something that we experienced. As young adults that left a huge imprint on like myself. So to be able to experience the museum and spend time there and listen to the voicemails of people calling from the airplane, to their loved ones, it was just like, oh my gosh. And just the I think just the camaraderie and the patriotism that people showed, after all of that, just really, it was like, while it was such a tragedy, and the memorial was so sad, it was also so like hopeful, and just some of the different displays, and just the hope that they have for the city, since then and all of that. But anyways, that was like such a emotional, like, I think we spent like almost 3 hours in there.
Yeah, and it was 3 hours of not saying a word to each other.
Yeah, you don't go and even say anything. Like, I remember just like crying the whole time walking through. It was so emotional and so, but I'm so glad that we did that. I really enjoyed. We didn't do any other museums. We wanted to when we were there for a second trip, but that was like the top one on my list. But so that was one of my favorite memories of New York. My
final one is, again, it's general, but just the experience of doing public transit for an entire week, and it's fun. It's fun to fly into a place and take an Uber to your place and then never have to have a rental car. Yeah. It's just...
Well, our first trip, Uber wasn't around yet, but taxis were, so it's like public transportation.
So it was it's really fun. It's fun to figure out, times me and Carly would look at each other and think, well, there's so many different buses. Which one do we... I mean, so many different subways. Which one do we take? And we always figured it out somehow. A couple times it was late at night and we decided to Uber instead of getting on the subway. Yeah. I think twice we did that. We just looked at each other, our feet hurt. We've been walking all day. We're like I will pay the extra $5. I don't want to figure out. I'll pay the extra $5 just for an Uber right now because I can't handle walking anymore, and we're mad. And
well, one of the nights on our second trip out there a couple years ago, when we went to visit your cousins who were now living in Long Island City at the time, we took the wrong way on the F train coming back. And we were like, yes, so far out of the way. And I think that's the train that, there's one of them that like stops running at some point, like at night, or is just exceptionally long, like you wait forever, and we ended up got on the wrong way, and anyways, that was a very late night, but yeah, it was...
It's like... forget it.
Yeah, we'll just spend the whatever it is on Uber to get home. We had some interesting Uber drivers.
We did.
Because we typically, like, were far enough away where it was a pretty, I guess it was not a long drive, but...
In New York, it's long, it was a couple miles, but it took forever.
It was enough time to, like, actually talk to your Uber driver and, like, get to know them a little bit, I guess. But remember the other time, 4th of July, when we were out here the last time, and we got poured on running to the subway after leaving Long Island City.
Yeah, that was a great memory, too, sitting, watching the 4th of July fireworks on Hudson River. Yeah. I mean, that was amazing.
That was amazing, yeah.
But do you remember the other time we were there the first time, and we're going to get a taxi, and the guy offered me cocaine?
Oh my gosh, that's right, we were in Chelsea.
He said, no. Some guy like walked up to me and offered me cocaine and said, "I'll give you a sample." And I thought, why? What? You're gonna give me a sample of cocaine?
I'm just surprised that like you didn't agree to it for how rough of a place your life was. No, but my wife would love some. I'm just kidding. It's not okay to joke about that.
No, for sure not. We never did drugs like at all. But it was such a weird situation because I think that was the second night we were there maybe, and we looked at each other like,
where
did that just happen? I mean, we live in L.A. Yeah. I mean, we live in L.A., and that never happened to me. A sample?
A sample.
A sample of cocaine? I don't even know what that means.
I'm sure this is real legit and not synthetic at all.
Sorry if anyone has had a sample of cocaine. I just can't imagine it being a real thing, but...
No, there's no way.
Yeah.
But, I mean, those are just some of our many memories of our life-changing trips to New York. Next week we'll go a little further into as our lives really begin to make a change.
The crap hits the fan.
Yes, big time. Big time crap fan.
All right. See you later.
Thanks for joining us on Bizography. Please subscribe or leave a comment. And if you have questions or want to open up a discussion, you can find us on Instagram or Facebook at Bizography. See you next time.